I don't know what's more confusing, learning astrology or just being a human. Moonday Musings is here to help with that. A weekly, no bullshit guide for the upcoming cosmic forecast and how you can actually use this in your real life. Hello, neighbor. Happy Monday, my friend. Happy Moonday, and welcome back to Moonday Musings. If you have never been here before, hello, I'm Danny. I'm that witch next door. I will be your host, your guide, your mentor, your instructor, your spiritual bestie, and all things magic, witchcraft, and modern cosmic living. And it is officially the last Monday, the last moon day of May 2026. It's Memorial Day. That's what the last Monday in May is. And this is a time for reflection and gratitude here at That Witch Podcast. So at the very beginning of May, we did not have a recorded episode of Moonday Musings May's Cosmic Monthly Overview. However, I did put out a blog post with May's astrology and energy and everything like that. So moving forward, if you didn't catch that already, checking the blog is a wonderful place if I miss a Moon Day episode, because that is something I'm trying to get up no matter what, but also a nice handy backup in case I'm not able to record. My daughter got her tonsils out at the end of April, and when we crossed over into May, I was in the middle of the twilight zone as far as time is concerned. It was so weird having that week of recovery with her take place at the end of one calendar month and the beginning of the next, because I still, and now it's the end of May, I still have this feeling like April never ended and I never saw the end of April, and therefore May never really began. And obviously that's not the case, because here is May, it's gone and went, and we are about to close it out. So first of all, happy Gemini season, my friend. It is officially Gemini energy out there, isn't it? And I'm really excited because today I am recording this at the start of Gemini season on Wednesday, on Mercury's day, and I'm going to really tap into that energy and do some honoring of Mercury and dedicate this reflection and gratitude episode to Mercury energy, to Gemini energy, sharing the truth and letting ourselves hear the truth as well. So let's talk a little bit about May, shall we? May had quite a bit astrologically speaking, and we've got plenty to look toward in June. But if you've never been here at That Witch Podcast before we just dive into the next calendar month, before we just start going through kind of the upcoming astrological forecast and how we can head into that mindfully, we can't do that quite yet without reflecting back on where we've been, sifting through what we are stepping away from and letting go of, and what we are intentionally carrying with ourselves forward in the forms of the things that we're most grateful for. So before we get to gratitude, we begin with the reflection. And I highly, highly recommend utilizing this episode as a big reminder to really, truly go back and reflect. Try to make this as tangible of a process as possible. There's all types of ways that you can do this. You can go back and you can flip through any journal entries over this last month, but I also recommend looking in your digital or physical calendars. Go back and look. What kind of appointments? What events did you have? What did those days look like for you? go and look through your photos you took throughout the month. Sometimes that can be such a great kind of time travel-y way to go back and go, oh yeah, I was doing this on that day. It can even be helpful if you're able to like skim through some emails, if you could skim through your text messages or your DMs, anywhere where you were maybe interacting with people. Who were you talking with? Who were you listening to? What were they saying? What were they sending you? All of these are great ways to really intentionally, but like I said, tangibly go back through this past month. What was May 2026 like for you? Where were you, especially at the beginning of the month? And where are you, and how does that contrast with where you are now? May was really interesting. This is where we can also use astrology to kind of layer in some context with those other things we might be reflecting and looking through, like our planners, our calendars, our journals, our photos, all of those things. Looking back at those things and then taking a look at the transits or those major astrological events that were happening throughout the month. Sometimes our biggest full circle moments, the biggest connections that we make in astrology actually come in retrospect. When we look back and go, oh my God, I didn't know that Mars was doing that day. Oh my God, I didn't realize that was the full moon that day. I didn't realize that was the new moon that day. I didn't realize that was happening at the end of Taurus season, right before Gemini season. So nothing is off the table as far as like your little data that you build for yourself throughout each month for you to go back and reflect through. So this is the obvious things like our calendars, our planners, our journal entries, like I've mentioned. But I want you to even go back and look through if you have any apps that you use for tracking anything, keeping track of your steps or your water or your cycle. I want you to be brave and go back and look at your finances. What were your financial habits like through May? Sometimes going in and really combing through our finances and our financial choices can be this really kind of emotionally triggering thing. I recommend doing this more than once a month anyways, but I recommend doing it at the very bare bones least once a month. And you can always use our end of month episode as that reminder to go back and look through your finances as well. It's another super informative, very fascinating kind of connecting point to go back and look through some of your financial habits and then have that context when you take a look through the astrology. Now, speaking of the astrology, we had quite a bit, like I mentioned. This was kind of a stacked month of some major shifts. One of the biggest things that stood out this month, astrologically speaking, is that we had 2 full moons in the month of May. Now, we are almost to our second full moon. We haven't had our Sagittarius full moon just yet. I'll get to that in just 1 minute. But we first began on May 1st, on May Day, on Beltane. We began with our full moon in Scorpio. And this was at 11 degrees Scorpio. And this was, for many people, a very, very intense full moon. Scorpio is super associated with intensity. Lots and lots of us really, really felt that way. Full moons kind of already symbolize kind of these peak climactic intense moments. And then we get a big oomph and like amplification of that intensity when we get our full moon in Scorpio every year. Not long after that, we had Mercury move into Taurus. And we moved through the first couple of weeks in May with Mercury in methodical, practical, speaks nice and intentionally Taurus. And this brought us to our new moon in Taurus, which was in the middle of the month on May 16th is when we had that new moon in Taurus. It can be really, really fascinating to kind of compare and contrast where you were at and how you were feeling during that full moon in Scorpio when the sun was in Taurus and the moon was in Scorpio, and compare that with where you were at, how you were feeling during the new moon in Taurus when the sun and the moon were both in Taurus. Make note of these things for yourself. I tell my students and clients all the time, sometimes, if not most of the time, our biggest connections in astrology come when we have this context of what we've already been through, and then we take a look and we say, okay, well, if we know that the moon and the sun were both in Taurus and I was feeling this way, I wonder what that says about my relationship to Taurus, or how Taurus shows up in my chart, for example. Then, right after that new moon in Taurus, we started having some planetary shifts, and we had Mercury enter into Gemini. Right after that, we had Venus enter Cancer. And then we found ourselves right here in Gemini season, and the sun entered into Gemini. Then at the very end of May, on the very, very last day, on May 31st, we will have our full moon in Gemini. That is going to happen on Sunday, May 31st. We will meet again on Monday, June 1st for our first Monday and Moon Day of the month next month. So we are going to be meeting again in that fresh post full moon energy. Now, anytime we have two full moons in a calendar month, there can be this kind of fascinating beginning of the story and end of the story, where we were and where we will be taking off next from. I really want you to take your reflection seriously this month. And if you do nothing else, astrologically speaking, I want you to try to go back and really refresh yourself with how you were feeling around May 1st, because I really believe that it is going to give you some very, very helpful context moving into this Sagittarius full moon on the last day of the month, okay? Now, if you need some time right now to do a little bit of reflecting for yourself, pause this episode. I'll be right here when you get back. Look through these things. Look through your pages. Look through your data. Kind of familiarize yourself with where you have been. And then let's enter into our gratitude portion of the episode together with all of that in mind. Don't skip out on your reflection. Even if you don't have time to do it right now and you're listening to this episode straight through, that's okay. But I do ask, as your spiritual bestie, don't forget to go back and do that. I'm telling you that you really will get so much more out of your reflection and gratitude practice if you don't skip over that reflection step first and then enter into your gratitude. When we skip over the context that the reflection practice gives us, we tend to just move into gratitude work in this autopilot, robotic way. And we show up to gratitude and we just kind of rattle off these things that we know that we're always grateful for. When we do the reflection piece first, it helps us genuinely lean into this building and shedding natural cycle and process that the moon helps us move through every single month. And you're going to be able to harness the energy and the power of gratitude, rather than your gratitude practice looking a lot more like homework after school. That kind of energy. Now, for myself this month, May was an emergence for me. This was me coming out of the cave. This was me coming out of, coming up above the surface, from being under the surface of feeling like I've been held under the surface, under the waterline for many months now. And I feel like this was reflected within myself. I feel like I saw this reflected in the weather and nature around me. I'm very, very, very happy and grateful to say that our health for every member of my family, including my sweet baby angel dog here, our health has been well. I also like to knock on wood every single time I say that lately, because it was a hard winter, because it was hard and we did get our asses handed to us a lot. But we're all doing really, really well. My daughter had tonsil surgery, like I mentioned. We had, a normal, rough post-surgery week, but then as kids do after tonsil surgery, she bounced right back and she's feeling great. And we're so glad that she got those out. And I'm hoping that that just serves her really well throughout the rest of her childhood and into adulthood. I have seen this little pup of mine just spark back with so much energy compared to this winter and her own health struggles. I feel like her fur looks shinier and is softer and fluffier. I feel like her overall playfulness has really, really shown itself every single day. She's a puppy, so, even when she's feeling a little bit down, she was never lethargic or anything like that. So even when she's feeling a little bit down, she's got a decent amount of energy. But seeing her now, it's like, oh yeah, she's feeling better, that kind of a thing, which is just such a relieving feeling to have as a mom and a dog mom, for sure. And as for myself, I've mentioned it many times. I know when I need to take time away from the podcast, that it's this important part of the process. I know that it's okay. I really make a point to honor that need. And it's still really hard for me to do. And this is absolutely one of those times where I'm getting that direct, immediate feedback, kind of post space taking, where it's like, yeah, this was exactly what I've been needing. So I'm excited for this year. That witch school is like cooler than ever. I cannot emphasize that enough. Probably one of the biggest things I am grateful for from this whole entire month is that I finally, after years, got to meet in person my wonderful, wonderful friend and colleague and member and neighbor, Mary Muse. And Mary has been on the podcast with me several times. She is the headmistress of my tarot department inside of that witch school. She hosts a monthly tarot circle for all of our students. And she is genuinely one of my favorite people in the entire world. And one of many of my friends and folks in my community that I feel so close to that sometimes it's hard to wrap my head around, like, oh my God, we've like never seen each other in person before. And the stars aligned in May, and she and her partner, our fellow wonderful student and member in that witch school, Caleb Holton, were able to swing by through our house here in New England, and we got to host them for a night, and we all got to meet in person. We all got to hug in person, and it was honestly so good on just so many levels that I'm not even able to put fully into words. But one of my biggest takeaways from it, now that I've had this experience, meeting Mary and Caleb in person, now that I've had this experience of our first in-person That Witch School meetup, which we did in Salem, Massachusetts last year in August, I've also got to meet my amazing multimedia witch and That Witch School director, Jenny SRP, who's been with me since basically the very beginning of That Witch. Now that I've had these multiple experiences and opportunities of meeting my witchy community members in real life, it's doing something to my brain, y'all. It's doing something to me. And I mean this in the best way. Being neurodivergent and particularly ADHD, I really thrive off of physical, real evidence, and especially learned evidence, meaning more than one time, and really, really getting that evidence reinforced. And getting this reinforced experience of meeting my community members and these incredible people that I've made connection with through That Witch Next Door, through That Witch School, through That Witch podcast, and seeing our very real virtual connection come to life in person, and how it feels to hug these people, how it feels to stand right there and look them in the eye and share what we have in common with, but also hear and listen to what That Witch podcast and what That Witch School has done for them, when it's brought all of us. It is giving me an entirely new respect for, confidence in, and just deep soul appreciation for this witchy neighborhood. We are a fucking army, y'all. Like, we are. If you feel that, you are valid, because we are. I've seen it in person enough times now that I'm like, this is so real. These relationships we're creating with each other are so, so real. And if you are one of the many new members who joined during our spring sale, I'm so excited for you to get to really, really experience this for yourself now. If you have been in That Witch School for a while now, and you haven't been able to meet up with someone in person yet, or you weren't able to join us in Salem yet, or maybe you're not able to join us just yet in Salem this year, because we're going again in August, I want you to know that these connections we have with each other are real. They're so real. They're so absolutely amazing and incredible. I hope that this only continues to blossom and unfold tenfold and more. My intentions, my manifestations, my gratitude for the end of May, moving into the second half of the year. You realize that, right? June marks half of the year being over. My God. What I'm taking into the end of the year is watching this community just expand beyond our wildest dreams. So, too long, didn't read. I am feeling insanely, insanely grateful for our witchy community right now. Let's move into a little bit of a gratitude reading. It's been way too long. I do want to find ways and more moments for incorporating some more collective readings here in the neighborhood for everybody. This is something that I really do love doing with all of you. And we don't normally have time to do this on the first Monday of the month. That's the only reason I don't do a reading on that day. But it is something that I know lots and lots of you love. And I want you to know that I honestly love it just as much as well. And I'm brainstorming some new little segments, working into the vlog or podcast weaving in a little bit more collective readings for all of us. But this is absolutely one of my favorite parts of our reflection and gratitude episode. We are, of course, using the Work Your Light deck by Rebecca Campbell. And before I reveal our card, I want you to just take a moment. You can even pause this episode right here. I want you to take a moment to ground your energy a little bit, cleanse your aura in and around you. You can do this by just kind of doing some soft, gentle stretching. You can roll out your neck, your shoulders. You can wiggle your fingers or toes. You can even just kind of blink your eyes open and close, or kind of move your mouth around. Yep. If you're on YouTube, you can always follow my facial instruction there. Any type of even just simple and gentle body movements is a wonderful way for using your body activation to help kind of refresh your energy. And then allow yourself to take some nice and deep, really grounding and centering breaths. Again, you can even pause this episode and take a moment to really, really breathe in some stillness and help yourself open up to any messages, any guidance, and any insights that you may be needing or seeking at this time. Ooh, this is really pretty. I hope that I pronounced this correctly, and I apologize, and I might butcher it, but we got the Mintakan card. It says, longing for home, belonging, and the original light workers. Mintakans are a soul group who originated on a planet in the constellation Orion. They were the first star beings to travel to Earth and believed to be the original light workers. The Mintakans' home planet is thought to have been a water world with water so pure that you could see through it for miles. For this reason, Mintakans feel most at peace and at home when in or around crystal clear water. They are here to teach us to see the potential in everything and the light that is in all beings. Many Mintakans have an odd longing for home and struggle with feeling like they don't belong. It is thought that this is due to their home planet no longer being in existence. If you pulled this card, it could mean that you are a Mintakan or are longing for a sense of belonging, and root chakra healing is necessary for you to feel secure and safe. Perhaps you feel this longing to find home without knowing where that is. Perhaps you've been moving around a lot and yearn for a place on Earth to call your own. If so, you are being called to connect with Mother Earth and create it for yourself now. To choose where you feel most at home and create it, rather than waiting for the feeling of belonging to come. I'm glad we pulled this card. This is kind of a good opportunity for me to talk about something I don't really talk about a lot on the show. I'm not really your alien expert, if you couldn't already tell. I'm not your alien expert. I absolutely believe in aliens. I'm kind of one of the people who thinks it's, at this point, silly to not believe in aliens, to be quite frank about it, because to think that we're genuinely the only form of intelligence or sentient beings in this entire universe just feels wildly improbable. That just feels like so arrogant and so silly. That being said, if you've listened to this show for a nice long time, you've also probably heard me talk about that what we do here is we practice grounded spirituality. And I will be very forthcoming with you and tell you there is there are branches within the spiritual community that take the alien thing in a direction that doesn't resonate with me. Some of it that I also find quite unhelpful and unethical. There is a danger zone a little bit here in the alien realm when you come across channels and intuitives who tell you they have a special connection to an alien race or an alien community, and that only they have that connection, and the only way for you to hear these very, very, very necessary messages, basically life or death messages, or not even life or death. It's usually more of like ecstasy or misery. You're either choosing to live in misery forever, or if you listen to me and you take in these messages, you'll ascend into ecstasy. You'll ascend into the 5D. I don't think any of us are here by accident. I don't think that there is a mistake. I don't think that any of us are on Earth and born in our human bodies by mistake. I don't think that those mistakes happen. And I think it is such an arrogant human way of thinking to think that it's possible that some sort of mistake happened and that you were born in the wrong place at the wrong time. The reason I believe it's arrogant is because you are essentially implying that you have the end all be all, essentially omnipotent perspective, that you can foresee that big back in the past into our future. You know that much about souls and higher power and the universe that you know that there must have been some mistake. I'm sorry, but that's just like not possible in my opinion. I don't think that in our human life form it's possible for any of us to have a full complete grasp on this whole thing, this whole existential part of our existence. That all being said, this is why I find this theory really fascinating. I do believe that there are different types of souls and different types of entities. And I don't think that every single thing taking up and occupying a human body, I don't think that every single soul occupying a human body is exactly the same type of being and the exact same type of entity. I absolutely believe that there can be folks who are born of another planetary race, another completely different location in the galaxy or the universe itself, and are born here on our planet, here on Earth in our human form. I do think that's possible. What I love about the Work Your Light deck, and what I really loved about this reading in this card, is actually the light card activation at the end. So it says, Work Your Light transmission. Hold this card on your heart and say, I allow myself to be truly here and at home on this planet. I release any grief around not belonging or feeling held and call in the perfect home. I appreciate that the purpose and message of this card is bringing it back to you're right where you're supposed to be, and your soul chose this time and this place and this life incarnation for a reason. And instead of focusing on how to escape it and get away from it, turn toward what the purpose of it might be. Why might you and your spirit team have chosen for this light incarnation to happen? What might you be able to contribute? What might you be able to gain and learn and grow from this life? So the other thing I want to mention too is I'm going to get a little sassy here and say, not everybody who feels like Earth is not home, that doesn't automatically mean you're a fucking alien. It doesn't automatically mean you're from an alien planet. I believe that there is a reason for feeling like we don't belong and craving belonging and craving acceptance. And I think that when we walk through the lessons and experiences of that feeling and that experience, I think that we create our home. We create a place and a community of belonging. And we create acceptance, or we find and activate our own inner acceptance. So I really appreciate that this card came out today. For me, it really is perfect with a lot of what I want to start talking about more and more on that Witch podcast and more in my content. I want to share a lot more of my opinions and my views with you in the spiritual and witchy industry, because I think there is so much value in it. There's a reason that I have a job in the industry that helps people connect with that part of themselves and practically use it in their life. And I also think that there is a ton of problematic behaviors and all kinds of issues within it as well that I absolutely want to shed light on more and more, because I think that a sense of not belonging and a sense of this must not be my home, I don't belong here, I must belong somewhere else, is a slippery slope mode of thinking that can start falling into bypassing your own experience and then starting to bypass the experience of others, when the truth is that you matter, and what you do and the impact of what you do matters. It has that impact. And I would advise turning toward feelings of lack of belonging, longing for a different home. And I would use the energy of Gemini season right now to get curious about that within yourself, because I think that journey could help you potentially create your own unique roots of home and belonging right here, right where you are. So thanks for going on this little journey with me. I love that we got this card today, and it is a really, really gorgeous imagery as well on the card. You're the best. May was crazy. I can't believe it even happened and that it's also basically over. I can't believe that the first half of the year also pretty much happened and is basically over. You're amazing, neighbor. You matter. You have impact. And I'm so grateful to have you here in this witchy community with me. I can't wait to see you next time. Make sure until then that, of course, you stay safe, you keep having fun, and stay magical out there, my friend. If you enjoyed today's episode, if you learned something, or you just love that witch podcast, one of the best things that you can do is share the show with a friend. Just by reaching out and sharing a link or recommending us to somebody is hands down the best way to help us grow our podcast here. So you can head right now into the podcast app that you're listening to, and you can directly share this episode by using your little share link button, or you can just take a screenshot or just mention that witch podcast to whoever you're recommending us to, because you can find that witch podcast on all major podcast listening platforms. Thanks for being such a great neighbor.